Good morning, boys and girls. I'm Mrs. Parkhurst, and I'm a teacher with environmental education for the school district of Waukesha. And if you're watching this right now, you're fifth grade students, and we are learning about wetlands and marshes and all of that really fun stuff this year. And I'm here today at the Fox River Parkway. Many of you have maybe seen it. It's behind Target here in Waukesha, and there's a large wooden walkway that stretches over this whole area of wetlands and marsh. And a lot of it is grown up around me right now. It's mid-July, but in the springtime you can see a little bit more of the ponds, and everything is not as grown. But today, the question that I have for you, and I'll turn this video around in a second, is I want you to see if you can identify something that is not only beneficial to the marsh from an environmental standpoint, meaning, you know, it's from a habitat and that sort of thing, but I want to see if you can identify something or pick something out that might be useful to survival as well. So not only for Native American tribes that lived in this area hundreds of years ago, but also if you just needed it for some sort of survival. So I'm going to turn the video around shortly and see what we can see. Any ideas? If you guessed cattails, you guessed right. Many of you have likely seen these in ditches or marshes as you're driving in the car. But this particular plant has been historically for the Native Americans, and even is still a very unique plant that can be used for lots of different uses for survival and such. So we're going to explore some of those now. Okay, so here's one of the cattails that I wanted to show you, and we're going to start with this point right here. Early on in the season, when this is really closed and green, people have been known to eat it, which is very interesting. This time of year, you're going to see it with this brown tinge. How they used to use this in the past, Native Americans would use this brown as kind of a dye for different things, whether they were dyeing clothes or baskets or using it for paint. They also could use this medicinally as well, so there were some healing properties to this. Later on in the season, they tend to get fuzzier, and you can kind of see, at the end of my finger here, you can kind of see where some of them have gotten kind of fluffy out here. And from a survival standpoint, you can use that to start fires. Native Americans also would use that in their mattresses or pillows, kind of as fluff to sleep on. There were other ways they would use it too, sometimes in diapers for infants, or even in moccasins for padding. So it was really used in a lot of different unique ways. Now underneath here, this is a really rigid part of the plant. This is the stem. This is kind of a reed. See, I can't even really bend it. Historically, Native Americans used to use these as light reed arrows for hunting. You can still use those as survival today if you needed to. And then we're going to go right into these leaves here. So the leaves right now are green and pliable. If you combed them, dried them, they could be used in a lot of different ways. They could be used for weaving baskets. They could be used for making ropes. They are really strong. So when you weave them together, they have you know, the strength that they could be used for a lot of different ways. I've even read that sometimes this could, when woven together, could be used for seats in canoes and such. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do these as well. The cell structure is really, really strong. So I'm closer to the pond now because we're going to show you the roots of the cattail and how those can be beneficial. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead and cut a little bit under the dirt. And when you do that, you can see inside there, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Now there's dirt, and this is a little bit older of a cattail, but we're going to do some dissection, and I'll show you what it looks like inside. So I'm closer to the pond now, and I was able to cut off a couple of the cattails, and you can see here's the long leaves that we can use for weaving and other rope, that sort of thing. But what I'm showing you now is actually the roots. So I just went down really close to the pond and I dug these out. Now this one's kind of older, really thick and fibrous. But on this one right here, it kind of reminds me of an onion, of a white onion that you can pull. And if you go ahead and trim off some of these leaves, you get down to this white part, which really looks like a white onion now. And this is the part you can eat. You can cut this and just kind of taste between, I would say, a cucumber and celery. So this is the nutritious part of the cattail. There's other parts that you can use as well. You can grind some of the upper parts for flour. You can boil it. You can eat these roots. So that's another really interesting way that cattails are beneficial to survival. Here's a little bit better of an idea than where I was in the swamp before by the Fox River Parkway. I was able to grab one of the cattails that has gotten nice and fluffy. So you can see here how this would be so much or so beneficial to things like lining moccasins, keeping heat in for clothing, for diapers. The Native Americans used to use it for diapers for infants, to line pillows, mattresses, moccasins, that sort of thing. But the fibrous nature of this is also really good for starting fires as well. So if you have a little bit of this, it would be a good way with a little bit of tinder and some other pieces of wood to start a fire if you need that for survival as well. So thanks for exploring the many ways that cattails can be helpful, whether it's survival or to the Native American tribes hundreds of years ago. This definitely was a plant that not only is beneficial to habitats for animals, to help marshes absorb water and flooding water in the spring and other times of year, but they're also really, they have a lot of really great uses too. So the next time you see a cattail, maybe you can name off a couple.